Alright guys, welcome back to Tech. Got a really nice replay here from one of the top players in our clan, Groundpounder, who is driving around in his AMX 50B causing chaos. Um, Pretty good replay. You can see there's pretty good mix-up. We've got some mediums, we've got some heavies, big TDs. That's going to be a problem. But before we start this replay, let's have a look at the 50B and Tank Inspector. So welcome to Tank Inspector. I'll put a link for this program in the description of the video. Really nice program to show you the effective armor of tanks, to give you stats, allow you to put on the various pieces of equipment, alter the crew, and also compare tanks to one another. And it will also give you the details of the effect of the various pieces of equipment, like enhanced gun length drive, etc., etc. Fully 3D. Very, very nice program. I think I was got onto this by Jingles, so I really recommend this for any of the tech members and anybody else who's interested in watching these videos. 50B, beautiful looking tank. It's just very, very nice model. I gotta say, I really enjoy how this tank looks. I haven't actually played it yet. I'm at the 5100. But from what I've heard, this thing is well worth the grind, and Groundpounder's game today is going to show us what it is capable of. If we switch over to the armor map, or the what's called the collision model view, we can see a lot of unfortunate colors here in terms of armor. As you can see, red being the strongest armor, and we also got various parts of spaced armor as well. So, very strange tank. You'll see that unlike most heavy tanks, the lower front plate and the upper front plate is the highest position or highest armor. 321 equivalent at this particular angle, 232. You'll see also that in some parts of the tank there are the possibilities of a ricochet, even though most of the armor is very low. And that round could bounce off, and I believe it's possible to bounce off into the turret. I think I read that somewhere before. But your overall armor, we're looking at, 100, 120, 200 because of the nice angle of that front plate. It's a very, very weak armored tank. So this thing is not going to be a brawler. And that is the same with all of the French autoloader heavy tanks. You've got your things like a Foch and things which can really stand up to some damage. This thing, it can't. But it is all about that beautiful long cannon. The armor is not going to win you any prizes. I mean, if you look at the back of the tank, that's green armor. Basically nothing. All right, 30. I don't know how low a tier you have to go to be penetrated by the 30 penetration gun, but if you get behind this thing, it's toast. It doesn't have a hope. It's also a lovely target for artillery. I mean, looking at the top of the tank, if you're an arty player, this is the kind of area that you want to be aiming at. You can hit it at the front if that's the only place. You'll still probably do a lot of damage, but even your HE rounds could easily penetrate the rear of the turret, the engine deck, even the side of the tank coming in 65. A couple of HE rounds will certainly do their work here. But let's have a look at the stats, and this is what the tank is all about. So firepower, you do have higher than average penetration at 257, which is very good. You do have lower damage though at 400. But remember, because it's an autoloader, we're looking at burst damage rather than individual shell damage. So that's not really 400. It's 400 times 4. Okay, so it is an awful lot more damage. The reload at 29 seconds, it's not great. It could be better, but for the amount of damage you can pump out for every 29 seconds of staying alive, that's quite a lot of damage. Okay, 56 rounds, you can certainly last quite a long time in a game. Looking over at maneuverability, accuracy, 0.32, not bad. Not German accuracy, but it's pretty good. Remember though, because it's a burst gun, you shouldn't be sniping with this thing. You shouldn't be sitting at the back of the map trying to pick targets off. This thing gets in close, throws out that entire clip, and gets the hell out of there. So accuracy isn't that much of an issue unless you have to aim for weak spots. But with your 257 penetration, you can easily hit the lower front plate of an E100. You can drive around the back, you're pretty fast, and pump your damage in where it's needed. 2.4 aim time though, it could be played as a sniper. I wouldn't recommend it, but it is possible given the right circumstances. Alright, but I think the major problem with this tank is these two stats here, these great big red down arrow stats. Elevation 12 degrees. Most of us can survive with not great elevation, as most tank battles are going to be happening generally on level ground, or if anything below you. But elevation, they're occasionally trying to hit targets in the top of mines, various hill fight spots, the hill at Himmelsdorf if you're on the slope. That really could be an issue, but it's this depression that's going to eat you alive. All right, 8 degrees of gun depression. Benchmark for this tier, 13.7 degrees, which is good, but 8 is just atrocious. You cannot hill fight in this tank. Okay, I want to make that absolutely clear for anybody who plays it. If you're driving over hills, if there's more than one tank, you're going to pay for that. You don't have the armor to risk trying to push up. You can't get your gun down, which means you've got to drive all the way up onto the level of that hill, leaving your tank exposed the entire time. Very, very risky maneuver. Power and speed, well, 1,200 horsepower, above average for this tier. Okay, 36 degrees traverse speed, not bad at all. Okay, so it's a gun, it's a tank that it's really all about the gun. It's all about the gun, it's all about the burst damage. That's what you need to do with it. Alright, let's go back and have a look at this replay and see what Ground was able to do with these stats. So here we are, welcome back to the replay. Let's get this going. And Ground's off. 29 seconds to reload his full clip. He's heading up into B2, which I think is probably not where I would have gone with this tank, but given Ground's stats, I absolutely can't argue with it. Nearly crashes into a medium tank here. Well, I suppose he did really crash into it, but that's no problem, no damage was taken. Takes a risky move here. I normally avoid this hill. As you're going to see, as he goes over here, he is going to get spotted. Now, he will be able to see some of the enemy tanks, but I normally go to the next ridge over there on the left to drive up to this area, as I find that a little bit safer. You do get the occasional scout over here and TDs, which can blast you if you're unlucky. It just depends on the game. So he spots the 140, who is a good player. He in return is spotted. T-54 takes a speculative shot, and boom, dodges 2 more rounds. He was lucky to get away with that without taking any damage, but, it's World of Tanks, that's what happens. So, the engagement begins. We've got a couple of tanks in the usual brawling spot here. T-54 in, I think, a surprising position there, given that that tank doesn't have much gun depression. And of course, we're going to have the usual heavy tank brawl over here. This is medium territory, or tanks with 103s, M103s with their gun depression. Very nice spot. I think this really is a carry spot over here. The enemy position over there. This is where you're going to find most of the really good players playing. It's not to say that heavy tanks don't have their role, but medium tanks really seem to be the way to play things at the moment. So this is an unusual spot for Ground. We saw that gun depression. You're going to see a couple of times that he just cannot get his gun into position to get his work done. Alright, so it begins. He's trying to get himself into a position. T-54, very, very lucky to get that hit in. At that angle, I'm very surprised that he was able to penetrate in that position, but didn't take any damage in return. Pumps the second one in, that's 800 damage. Third one does ricochet, and he goes for the reload. And this is a key skill for these autoloader tanks. You've got to time your reload exactly right. 29 seconds without any damage potential, without any defense. You've got to be in a position to do that. So in these tanks, you have to have an escape vector worked out. His escape here is terrain, and the fact that he's got 4 allied tanks that these enemies are going to be shooting at instead of him. So he begins his 29-second waiting period, and the battle continues apace. T-54 pushes up aggressively. IS-7 gets a lot of hits from that T-57. I mean, just look at that, half health. T-57 takes a little bit of damage. And so, he's back. Very surprising moment here in a couple of minutes. Miss. He's spotted, and do you see what I see? Uh-oh. That, my friends, is the Jag Tiger, sitting flank on, camping, but obviously already been hit. You know, that's just a disastrous thing to see. We'll pause it, and boom, 477. I've slowed it down here. Ground's got 3 rounds in the chamber, and look at this accuracy coming into play. Lower front plate, 477, 473, comes back for the reload. Second hit, and he disappears. 1 round left in the clip, he decides to reload again. So in very short order, he's got 2 pretty much full clips out. I think it was 6 rounds that hit, possibly 4. And just look what's happened over here. These 2 medium tanks have pushed up. They're trying to deal with this IS-7. But that IS-7 is at a pretty good angle for some of them. Ground is hunting to try to get a little bit of help in. T-54 is gone, T-62 in short order, and... oh, not clipped in time. Very unfortunate. And a 98 damage kill on IS-7. 1 round left. Still time to do some work. 367 into the T-57 heavy. Time for the reload. 430 does something unusual here. With his gun in the rear of the tank, he's going to have to expose his hull. But he pushes up in front of these 2 tanks. Takes 1. Finishes the T-54. Ground trying to get up in support. 430 decides to run away. T-57 gets another hit into him. He sacrificed a lot of health to pull that move off. So Ground is reloaded again. We'll go back to his view and look at this. Very unfortunate elevation and gun depression. We're looking at his viewpoint. He just could not get his gun into position. So that tiny little rise, you wouldn't even see it in most tanks. You wouldn't even be aware of it. But that slight angle of that hill means that he's actually aiming almost into the floor as he tries to climb up this side of the ridge. And that is something you've got to be constantly aware of in these autoloader tanks. Your gun will not behave itself in any kind of a hill. Very unfortunate to get that shot to miss, or to, I think it was possibly a bounce or a ricochet. Hunting to get his gun over the hill. T-62 certainly knows he's there. And I think a beautiful shot here. He goes for the kill and takes a hit from the T-61, who saw what he was up to. 2 rounds left in the clip. Might as well put him to use if he can. Again, keeping the gun where he thinks they're going to be showing up. T-57, oh, ricochet. Hits somewhere along the side of his tank. Incredibly lucky not to have taken that hit. Back to his view. Good hit into him. Again, the gun depression playing its traditional role of screwing over your kill shots on these tanks. So 1 round left. He wants to put it to use. T-62. Another hit in there. So, gone for the reload 1 more time. 430 still alive. That's the auto aim feature. 61 has disappeared. 62 even has disappeared. Almost there on the reload. He has been spotted, and that's T-110E4 up there on the hill. A full health T-110E4. Now that is not good news at all. 61 is nearly dead. You'd really like to see that tank get taken out. There is a bat chat behind them. He'll probably get the job done. Assume he's got a full clip. And that is when Ground spots the juiciest target in the game. Well, would you look at that? Oh, watch for the wreck. Oh, yes. That is like Christmas. Okay, 215B, rear, 1,300 health remaining. That is a clip kill right there. I'm sure Ground was salivating by the time he saw this, and he's going to do his job in short order. 1, 2, 3. He didn't even react. He knew it was all over. And takes a hit. 4. 2 kills in extremely short order. Again, this is the potential of burst guns. If you can get yourself into the right position, you can do your work. He is spotted. E75. Ooh, just misses. Probably would not have been a kill shot, but our E75 takes him out. So at this point, the game, they're actually a little bit, they're about 1,100 short on HP. So he can probably stand to take 1 and possibly 2 hits, but with another clip ready to go, he can pump out a lot more damage than that. Takes the 1 hit. He's now at 1 shot for anybody who spots him, but that is a kill. We know that he's reloading. Boom. Done and dusted. 2 rounds left. T110E4, not good news. He is coming up that hill at you. E75 might hold him in place. He goes for the reload, and he's getting himself into a position to flank this guy. So I'm taking it out of his viewpoint. E75 does a good hit on that guy, but disaster. Waffenträger E100, another autoloader tank, who, you know, is getting his job done there, is going to take the E75 out. So that leaves Ground dealing with the T110E4, who probably knows he's here. Certainly turning his gun in the direction like he does know. He's been spotted, and boom. Very unfortunate. That could have been his 5th kill. But again, you could see what he was doing, using his allies to keep his enemy in place, getting around to the flank from this position down over here. If the E75 had stayed alive, that absolutely would have been a kill, and they just could have rinsed and repeated for the Waffenträger E100. So he starts to flick around through the other tanks, and this is a key skill, I think, for good players. Try to see what your rest of your team is doing. Can you help? Can you give any advice? Can you learn anything? Waffenträger E100, not in a particularly good spot. 430, I mean, that really should be a kill there. I suppose the 430 has to hit him 2 or 3 times. But for some reason the 430 has decided to go after the other 430. And our Waffenträger misses completely. Not the sharpest tool in the box here, and you can see Ground is having pretty much the same reaction. 430 gets a big hit, I assume, from the T95. Batchat gets rammed, I think, maybe rammed? No, not rammed, by the T54. And the Waffenträger is pushing himself up here. He's definitely going to get spotted. Let's go to his view. Manages to bounce the shot from the 54, gets 1 in, gets the kill, bounces a 2nd shot from the 430. Enemy Waffenträger is hunting for blood. I mean, this Waffenträger, you're not going to depend on it very much. But we do have a T95 on full health at the back of the map, and you can't blame this guy. That tank's slow as hell. It's essentially a movable bunker. He was never going to make it into B2 in time to be of any use. But in this kind of time of the battle, he really can perform some use, because unless they can get around him, his front casement is extremely difficult to penetrate. You can see Ground begging the Waffenträger who's just died to try to kill the 430 to give this guy some hope of success. So we've got our T95 with 3 enemy tanks, one of which is a medium. The TDs will have a hard time penetrating from the front, but the medium tank, who was last spotted down in the valley, is a massive threat to this guy. All he has to do is get behind him. I'm not sure on the armor values exactly, but a tier 10 medium will have no trouble penetrating his sides or rear. So it's come down to 1v3. And you really want this guy to win. You know, when you've had a really good game, even with high win rate on a loss, you always prefer to see a good game like this be a win, especially if it's your first victory of the day. And Ground stayed around right till the end, which I think is exactly what I would have done. So we'll see what he can see. And this guy, he's not just camping. Oh, there's a nice target. Boom. You know, he's not just sitting around doing nothing. This guy, he's got a plan here. He knows exactly how to play this tank. We look at his stats, we can see he's a good player. He's a very good player. 56% win rate overall, but a 66% win rate in this thing after 178 games. So he's found a tank he really likes, he's really good in. Dull as it is, slow moving as it is. I'm not looking forward to this tank myself. It's probably the next tank I'm going to be buying. Just grinding through the T28 at the moment, which I'm not enjoying. Just look at the size of the tracks. It's just such a ridiculous machine. Pushing up over hills, very dangerous in this tank. Oh yes. Oh, his gun's not even pointed, on the move. Although that's an irony in this tank. I think this thing moves so slow you barely get any bloom. It really does move as if it's, or to just shoot on the move as if it's not moving. I mean, sure there's some bloom, but not much. So 1v1. Again, the T95 could shift back to the back of the map and wait for him to come, but he's gonna try and spot this guy before he gets to him. Ballsy move in a tank this hard to move around. So from this position, he can see a fairly large proportion of the map. Ground wondering, is this guy going to try to go for the draw? I mean, looking at the enemy player, he's got massive number of games, low win rate, but he's not bad in this tank. Well, we're going to see those skills come into play now in a few seconds. How one player can just throw a game away and another player can win against all the odds. T95 nervous, pushing around, trying to find something, any indication of where it might be coming from. This kind of situation, you want to be looking for trees falling, buildings getting knocked over, just anything to give you, uh-oh, disaster. That there is a medium. This here is a very slow moving, very slow traverse TD, and from our enemy tank's position, that couldn't be a better shot. I mean, you just couldn't ask for any better opportunity to track a tank like this or to get behind it. And it looks like game over. I'm sure Ground was absolutely panicked at this point, but let's see what happens. He drives up and he stops? Yeah, he stops. T95, God knows why, decides to try to turn around and... my God. Well, whatever. Boom! And there it is. Absolutely unbelievable, and everybody can't believe it, including the Jag Tiger, who isn't that much better. I can't believe it, and that is how you win a game in a 50B. So here we have the results screen, mastery badge, always nice to get. He did actually hit that T110E4, I didn't realize, but it didn't penetrate, it was just a bounce. Lots of critical, lots of damage, 4 kills, very, very nice. Looking at the team scores, Ground, top damage, 5.4k damage, 4 kills, excellent experience. T95, 3.33 kills. I mean, that he played extraordinarily well for the tank that he was in. I think the Z100 was extremely lucky not to get any kills. I mean, 3,000 damage. You really deserve 1 or 2 kills. With the big gun, 7, that's about 5 shots he hit, and no kills, which is very unfortunate, considering that the Object 430 on our team, not on theirs, did 657 damage for 2 kills. You know, whatever. But that FV215B, the one that he got behind, excellent game for him. 3 kills. So that was a very important tank to take out of the game. So there we go, guys. That's how we play autoloader tanks. It's all about keeping your options open, having an escape route planned, keeping your timing absolutely right, getting that clip in play whenever you can. You can't depend on your armor. You can't brawl. You can't heal fight, but you can pump out the damage when it needs to be pumped out. So I hope you enjoyed the video, a little bit longer this time. Any comments and suggestions, leave them below. I'll try to reply to whatever I can. And we'll see you again soon, guys. Good luck.